Trevor Lawrence threw a lot of interceptions in the first half of the Jaguars' wildcard game against the Los Angeles Chargers. 4, to be exact, which helped land Jacksonville in a 27-0 hole. And the only fun anyone in Florida was having was with Lawrence's stats and just the ridiculousness of them all. Like the fact he had thrown 8 picks over the course of an 18-week season, but had just thrown 4 in 30 minutes. Or, if we cherry-picked his interception percentage, it would go from 1.4% on the year to just under 17 in this one game. As a stat nerd, these kinds of things make me very happy. But we all know what happens next. He and the Jags storm back to win, including his putting on a clinic in the second half with 18 for 23 passing, good for 211 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and a 144.5 passer rating. Trevor Lawrence's stat line and story then really was a tale of two halves. But how did it happen? You know, when I first sat down to make this video, I assumed I was going to see 2 distinct schemes from one half to the next. But I was actually kind of surprised to see that neither team really made a ton of adjustments. Instead, both sort of just stuck to their guns until one ended up winning out. As far as what the Chargers tried to do on defense throughout the game, they essentially tried to muddy up the middle of the field with linebackers and nickel personnel in shallow zones. Connected to this, they regularly only rushed 4 on the line to keep 7 guys in the backfield to keep the play in front of them. And because they were more concerned with the short and intermediate parts of the field, this meant they played in a lot of one high safety looks, and they would consistently drop one safety down to guard the tight end or play robber to more intermediate middle routes. While this obviously proved to be a decent philosophy in the start, when we take a closer look at Trevor Lawrence's interceptions, we see that Los Angeles' defensive scheme was really only accountable for 1. And let's take a closer look at that interception. It was the third of the night, and it came on one of LA's most clever moves of the game. See, throughout most of the first half, the Chargers had their corners playing in cover 3 looks or man coverage on the outside receivers. You can see that pretty clearly on this first run play earlier in the first quarter, and then the play action play that comes directly after. Now let's take a closer look at how Asante Samuel Jr. plays this one. He starts by taking a couple steps back like he's dropping into his normal zone before he sits on the crossing route to the flat. Lawrence doesn't expect him to be here, and he jumps the route pretty easily. The other picks, I don't think those were really LA's schemes so much as they were hustle, luck, or just an inaccurate pass. Like this first one that's tipped at the line, and yeah, you could argue the right tackle needs to keep blocking on this so Joey Bosa can't get a paw up there, but hey, what are you gonna do? Second one is the Asante Samuel hold, which, yep, that's bullshit for T-Law. And then the last one is just an inaccurate throw from Lawrence that gets picked off. These happen when you try to squeeze him in there. Even with all of these interceptions throughout the first half, you still see the Jags test out what the Chargers were committing to play to play. Like here, where Trevor Lawrence tries to stretch the field. And while he doesn't complete this pass, he's still putting pressure on the more shallow zones that the Chargers wanted to play. Don't get it twisted though. Trevor Lawrence and the Jags were absolutely shook by Asante Samuel Jr. It's not as if they knew all of this was going to work out, and you absolutely see that on the sack on Lawrence as he hesitates to throw it at Samuel. But then I look at these quick flat routes by Travis Etienne at the end of the first half, and I feel like Coach Doug Peterson was starting to figure these guys out. These halfback flat routes on either side show how the Chargers were committing to these shallow zones with their linebackers and having their cornerbacks simply contain these routes. Based on what I was seeing here, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Chargers come out in the second half playing some of their cover 2 and shell looks. In a way, I think Staley might have been worried that he had overplayed his hand throughout the first half. Check out what Jacksonville does on the next play to test if LA really wants to play in that 2 deep safety look against them. The Jags come out with a 4 wide receiver set to try and spread the defense and promise more threats deep. But rather than keep with the shell look, the Chargers go right back to their cover 1 to muddy up the middle of the field. And this time, Lawrence goes to the shorter, easier completion. But the Chargers won't be so lucky when Lawrence faces a similar coverage late in the third and audibles at the line to take advantage of the weak side safety dropping down to defend the intermediate part of the field. With only one deep safety cheating over to the side of the trips receiver bunch, Zay Jones can run a long developing crossing route to beat the defender across his face and get to the opposite side of the field. Lawrence then just throws a great ball to the wide open receiver, and this was when I realized this comeback is really going to happen. Jacksonville won this game not because Trevor Lawrence suddenly started playing like a superhuman or because the Chargers started sitting off of them and prevent coverage or something. In fact, it seemed more the opposite to me. The Jaguars' offense stayed calm in diagnosing what they were seeing across from them, not letting some early interceptions or some quick junk like cover 2 or the third pick disturb their confidence. They also continued running the ball throughout the game, which I think in some part helped them force LA to stick to their script. In fact, they actually had a larger run-to-pass ratio in the second half. The Chargers, meanwhile, found what worked and committed to it. They made few adjustments, opting even to play the same exact coverage on the look that burned them on the audible. And the adjustments they did make stayed committed to stopping the short, shallow stuff, like having a linebacker follow the halfback flare into the flat, but this ended up just leaving them more susceptible to the shallow crossing routes that Lawrence likes. So, as the Jaguars rose from the ashes of a 27-point deficit, the Chargers were simply plugging holes with their fingers on a sinking ship as their lead slowly dwindled away. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please make sure to give it a like if you did enjoy it, and please consider subscribing to the channel so you can catch the next one. Thanks, bye.